Where are we going? Me, dude, you can't do that. I'm gonna die.
17 years ago, Twilight, 2008, took the world by storm with its moody romance, sparkling vampires, and unforgettable moments that defined an era. But beneath the drama and nostalgia lies a hidden blooper so strange, most fans never caught it. Until now. From van rescues that don't quite add up to a prom night detail that flips expectations, the film is sprinkled with little mistakes that are easy to miss. But one mistake towers above the rest. Could it change the way you see Twilight forever? Number 20. Sparkles in the wrong place. One of the defining features of Stephenie Meyer's vampire mythology is Edward Cullen's sparkling skin in sunlight. It's supposed to be the ultimate giveaway that these vampires aren't like the ones in traditional horror, a dazzling, otherworldly shimmer that makes hiding among humans nearly impossible. Yet, in 2008, Twilight went to great lengths and got very strange, for the rules weren't applied uniformly. Edward and the rest of the Cullens should most obviously be sparkling in some outdoor scenes, and in fact, the skins look more than perfect. The meadow scene where Bella is finally able to see Edward in the light works as it is supposed to, with all of that sparkling effect that became quickly iconic. But several other sequences, including school and even walking outside, fall prey to either subdued, absent, or inconsistent sparkle, which makes no sense. Never did fans doubt at an early stage. The idea of glittering vampires instead of burning them was all new, also attracted many with its novelty. Yet, over the years in high definition, all the missing luster began to grate in the end, most likely due to the budget limit and a hurried post-production schedule. Special effects in 2008 weren't as polished, and some shots were probably rushed or finished, but never touched. Whatever it might be, this mistake shatters the very foundation of Twilight's mythology, and it's near unbelievable that such a mistake slipped through unnoticed for so long. If you thought this sparkle slip was surprising, just wait. The next mistake is hiding in plain sight. Number 19. Bella's hair continuity. Bella Swan's signature look in Twilight is her long, dark brown hair, understated, simple, and perfectly fitting for the shy outsider who moves to Forks. But if you rewatch carefully, her hairstyle is one of the most inconsistent elements in the movie. Kristen Stewart didn't always film scenes in chronological order, and combined with a mix of natural hair, extensions, and styling changes, Bella's locks sometimes look noticeably different from one moment to the next. In the cafeteria, for instance, her hair goes from a somewhat loose and slightly frizzy texture to a back-and-forth smooth and more polished state. The same thing happens in the prom sequence. Her curls vary in tightness and length depending on the camera angle. Most fans brushed this off during their first viewing, especially when the movie was so dark and, well, more about a love story than the slightest details. But it's just hard to ignore the inconsistencies when watching the movie again. For even the smallest things may take the viewer's mind out of the midst of the story, and thus, the continuity becomes very important in films. No wonder Twilight's cult following took that to the internet years later as they began cataloging blunders. The interesting part is that Bella is supposed to have a very low-maintenance type of updo, and yet she gets to have more transformations in one film than some characters have in a whole franchise. Number 18. The Cullen car swap. Edward Cullen's car is almost as famous as his brooding stares and cryptic lines. In the Twilight book, Stephenie Meyer describes Edward's Volvo as sleek, silver, and almost unnaturally perfect, a reflection of his refined, timeless personality. When the movie hit theaters in 2008, fans were delighted to see the Volvo faithfully adapted, at least at first. Edward drives a silver Volvo C30 in the original film, a compact, modern-looking vehicle that matched his understated but stylish image. But that's where the continuity gets muddled. Suddenly, the car would be different in subsequent films. In New Moon and Eclipse, Edward is mysteriously driving a darker, flashier version of himself, more like a Volvo XC60 SUV. Noting it isn't nitpicking. For a character like Edward, frozen in time, obsessively routine, and blending quietly into human life, he rides cars in such a manner. Vampires do not exactly worry about upgrades and trade-ins, do they? The fans who review the series back-to-back came across that mistake and speculated whether it was intentional product placement or merely the studio making a new arrangement with Volvo. Whatever the case, it appears as one of the most obvious inconsistencies in the saga: Edward's car. After all, this is a franchise that teaches audiences about the notion of eternal love and timelessness. Edward's new wheels tell an extremely human, very un-vampire message. Number 17. The van scene slip. One of Twilight's most unforgettable moments is the school parking lot accident, where Edward saves Bella from being crushed by a skidding van. The sequence is tense and dramatic, cementing Edward as both a mysterious hero and someone with impossible strength. But if you watch closely, the scene isn't as flawless as fans once thought. The reflective windows of the van give away a little movie magic. You see crew members and equipment in the glass for a moment. The classic filmmaking slip for sharp-eyed viewers. Yet, more conspicuously, the van itself not only bricks itself into something much massive by Edward pushing against it to stop it from hitting Bella, but the metal also visibly dents under his hand, exhibiting his superhuman strength. However, the next shot has it completely gone, as if nothing ever happened. When the entire point of the scene was to demonstrate Edward's inhuman power, this continuity error undermines it all the way. The audiences at that time were too busy with the life and death drama to notice it. But when played again years later on high-definition screens, the blooper could be seen clearly. What was supposed to be the defining heroic moment for Edward has instead turned into one of Twilight's biggest accidental laughs. Blooper hiding in plain sight for 17 years. Number 16. Charlie's mustache magic. Charlie Swan, Bella's dad, quickly became a fan favorite thanks to his dry humor, awkward dad energy, and, of course, that iconic mustache. But if you look closely during Twilight, his facial hair isn't quite as consistent as you might remember. In certain scenes, like when Bella first arrives in Forks, his mustache looks thick and full, perfectly styled to match his small-town sheriff persona. Some scenes, perhaps even within the same take, appear to have been shot a bit mussed up, as if the shooting itself jumped around in the timeline, though that really wasn't the case. The slight slip in continuity came from reshoots, probably due to breaks in the filming schedule, which usually stretched across months. Actors do slightly vary in appearance during bouts of downtime, and facial hair is one of the most difficult areas for continuity supervisors to control. This is funny because Charlie's mustache became as famous as his character, and in some ways, fans joked that it deserved its own credit. Now, looking back, the different mustache styles stand out, especially in high definition. It does not ruin the character, but it's one of those little things that make Twilight a treasure hunt for some eagle-eyed fans. Indeed, in a similar vein, even Charlie's famous mustache could not escape the ever-lengthening list of glitches. Number 15. Forks High's basketball scene. High school life in Twilight is meant to ground the story in normal teenage experiences, contrasting the supernatural drama of the Cullens. One such moment comes during the Forks High basketball scene, where Bella walks through the bustling gym as students play and hang out. At first glance, it looks like typical background action, but attentive fans later noticed a glaring blooper. The extras aren't as varied as they seem. The same students appear to walk by multiple times, reused in different shots to make the gym look busy. Some of this kind of trickery goes on in low-budget films as well. For Twilight, that meant cutting corners here and there due to the modest budget of $37 million, especially in crowded scenes. On close inspection, however, the repetition is distracting. One girl, wearing a standout outfit, can be seen looping through the background as if Forks High had a moment called Groundhog Day. The likely visual effect wouldn't achieve its purpose in theaters. However, fans on the DVD and streaming platform would spot the recycling in a moment. But no, it just adds another level of campy charm instead of ruining the film. Even the extras had found themselves unwittingly part of Twilight's blooper reel. You've got to admit, for a fandom that has dissected pretty much everything, that's a pretty neat trick. Number 14. Vampire eye color inconsistency. One of the most fascinating details about vampires in Twilight is the way their eyes reveal their nature. Stephanie Meyer's lore explains that well-fed vegetarian vampires like the Cullens have golden eyes, while hunger turns them pitch black. It's a clever visual cue meant to signal their state of being without words. But in the 2008 film, that detail doesn't always hold up. Edward's eyes, for example, change shade mid-conversation with Bella. In one angle, they're a warm gold. Cut to the next shot, and they suddenly appear darker, almost black. The inconsistency can be seen in a few of the Cullens, notably Jasper and Alice. The use of makeup and colored contacts on set was heavy. However, with the lighting and edit, the hues would often look very different from one shot to another. Some fans threw that limitation to the technical fault of the day, while others said it broke one of the most important world-building rules for this saga. Upon rewatching, the fluctuation of the eye color becomes distracting, especially because it was supposed to shine a light on vampire lore. Instead of adding further mystery, it left some fans questioning whether or not the diet of the Cullens could change in mere minutes. It may seem like a small slip, but it's the kind of mistake eagle-eyed fans still debate to this day. Number 13. The apple cover Easter egg. Fans of Stephanie Meyer's novel instantly recognized one of the most deliberate Easter eggs in Twilight: Edward catching an apple in the cafeteria and holding it out to Bella. It's a direct nod to the original book cover, which features two hands presenting a red apple, symbolizing temptation and choice. On paper, it was a brilliant way to visually tie the movie to its source material. In execution, though, the moment turned into something a little awkward. Edward kicking the apple up to catch it in his hands looks a bit unnatural, almost like a blooper that made it into the final cut. His pose, almost a perfect recreation of the book cover, seems so staged that it momentarily pulls people out of the story. Adding to this, the apple slips rather strangely in his hands before the shot suddenly cuts away, making the Easter egg less like a smooth inside joke than an accident. It's an interesting idea that failed to connect with the fans, some of whom appreciated the nods to the novels, and others who felt embarrassed by how forced it seemed. Years later, it is a quintessential example of how good ideas might stagger in execution, a blooper masquerading as a tribute. Number 12. Edward's shadow. One of the central rules in Twilight's vampire lore is that these creatures are unlike the ones from traditional horror. They don't burn in the sun, but instead sparkle like diamonds, making it impossible for them to blend in when exposed to daylight. Yet, despite this unique twist, the filmmakers accidentally left in a far more classic vampire trait, or rather forgot to leave it out. In several outdoor shots, Edward clearly casts a shadow, most noticeably during the meadow sequence. It may sound rather trivial, but it challenges one of the supernatural rules strung together in the Twilight cosmology. If sunlight, as the name suggests, is supposed to jeer at Edward's glittering skin, then anything human-like cast by him should have no business behaving like a normal shadow. The error reminds filmmakers just how hard it is to hold the lighting and continuity in check on set, especially at scenic outdoor locations such as those in Oregon, though it seems a massive blunder once you see it. Most at that time were too lost in the romance of Bella's confession to Edward in the meadow to notice much. But that shadow slip-up, on a more keen rewatch, feels like a clash from Twilight's fledgling mythology with the old vampire tropes it tried so hard to escape. Number 11. The baseball scene. Goof! The baseball scene in Twilight is often hailed as one of the most stylish and memorable moments in the film. Set against Muse's supermassive black hole, the Cullens' supernatural game in the thunderstorm perfectly combines camp and cool, showing off their vampire speed and strength. But as iconic as the sequence is, it's also riddled with continuity errors that eagle-eyed fans eventually spotted. For instance, at times like this, Jasper swings his bat during the course of a shot. It's like he winds up in one way in the wide shot, but once the camera goes in closer, the whole stance and follow-through aren't the same at all. A similar slip is found in Alice's famous moment as a pitcher. In the first shot, her movement of throwing the ball is fabulous, but in the next one, the sound effect and trajectory of the ball don't match up very well. Pretty much the same way, there are certain Cullens, the way they move between frames, that look inconsistent, as if a scene were actually spliced together with different takes without smoothing transitions. Of course, none of that spoils the moment. In fact, the odd editing quirks almost make the scene even more charming by giving it that over-the-top, slightly chaotic energy that the fans are now beginning to embrace. What, however, was supposed to be a dramatic demonstration of vampire power became a cherished blooper hunt at every crack of thunder. Keep your focus after the thunder and bats, because the following detail is even trickier to ignore. Number 10. Reflection in the window. One of the coolest parts of Twilight is when Bella steps into the Cullen home for the first time. The sleek, modern house, full of glass walls and bright light, stands in stark contrast to Forks's gloomy weather. It's meant to show the Cullens as different from stereotypical vampires, blending luxury with mystery. But that abundance of glass also created a headache for the filmmakers, and one blooper slipped right through. During the house tour, fans experienced some reflection effects in the huge windows where they didn't want them to be found. At some angles, you can spot where they have set up cameras, and sometimes even catch the faint outline of a crew member caught in the glass. This is just a small detail, and once seen, never to be unseen. Likely because of the fact that every shooting location involves so many reflective surfaces, this bit becomes a nightmare for any production team. Most audiences miss the first time because of Bella's awe or Edward's explanations about his family. In HD replays, however, the reflections became clear, turning a moment that should have felt supernaturally elegant into a blink-and-you'll-miss-it blooper. Even in their polished, perfect house, it seemed, the Cullens couldn't hide everything from the camera. Number 9. Jacob's height changes. Jacob Black's character is all about transformation, from Bella's childhood friend to a central figure in the supernatural love triangle. In the books, his sudden growth spurt is tied to his werewolf lineage, symbolizing his shift from boy to protector. But in Twilight, 2008, before the full werewolf storyline kicks in, there's already a noticeable blooper in how his height is presented. Taylor Lautner was still pretty young when he was shooting scenes for the movie, and then having to stitch everything together later, sometimes prove to be a challenge to maintain continuity from shot to shot. In some places, it is given that Jacob is so tall that he dwarfs Bella, but in some sequences of the very same scene, he seems to be standing right next to her, almost at her height. Some of it has to do with camera angles or position, but in other instances, it seems more like the subjective nature of the inconsistency of reshoots. Later on, fans joked that Jacob shapeshifted for years before his werewolf-disclosed condition was identified. This becomes especially evident in the prom scene when Jacob shows up outside the dance to speak with Bella about the proceedings. He changes his height with the view of the camera, almost like he is still in between growth spurts. While that does not ripple the plot in any way, it unwittingly heralds Jacob's shift, just not the way he might have pictured it. There's nothing heroic or mythic about it. It's just a continuity error that sneaks up on you. Number 8. The prom scene shoes. The prom scene is one of Twilight's most romantic moments, closing the film on a dreamy note as Edward and Bella dance under twinkling lights. But sharp-eyed viewers noticed a surprising wardrobe blooper hidden beneath Bella's dress. In some shots, she's clearly wearing Converse sneakers, a quirky, very Bella choice that matches her tomboyish personality. Yet in other angles, her footwear seems to change, appearing more like formal heels that don't quite line up with the earlier shots. The most likely causes would have been reshoots or filming logistics. Kristen Stewart has spoken out about her distaste for high heels. Therefore, it is possible that during the shooting, she wore sneakers as well as the dress shoes of Bella, depending on what was needed for each scene. However, the two versions left visible in the final edit create a continuity slip that some fans may have only been able to catch on multiple viewings. The shoe blooper is hilarious because it, coincidentally, kind of fits with who Bella is. She's never been about glamour or high school attention. No wonder she'd wear her cons to prom. It'd still be a little inconsistent, yes. Rather than ruining the immersion, though, this shoe bloop contributed to yet another Twilight fan-favorite Easter egg in its long list of lovable imperfections. Number 7. The Cullen family portrait. When Bella first explores the Cullens' pristine modern home, she notices a framed family portrait that's meant to showcase their carefully crafted human facade. At a glance, it's a clever detail. Immortal vampires posing for something as ordinary as a family photo helps them blend into Fork's small-town society. But for fans who know the backstories of each Cullen, the portrait raises a few eyebrow-raising inconsistencies. For one, Carlisle's appearance in the photo doesn't exactly match the look we are supposed to see in future flashbacks. His hair is styled differently, almost modern, clashing with his centuries-old aesthetic. Some other ones, like Rosalie and Emmett, seem slightly off, too, compared to their established timelines. An oddity as far as continuity goes, it does not seem something that one could imagine this family would have done together as a hurried afterthought to make the house appear lived in. The odd styling of the painting became an anachronism very subtly, which fans really noticed after many years on rewatch. Although it may seem trivial, given the extent of the importance of the self-constructed identity of the Cullens for their survival, small mismatches become very significant. Number 6. The bite mark slip. The climax of Twilight sees Bella nearly slain by James, the nomadic vampire who lures her into the ballet studio. In the struggle, he bites her wrist, leaving a venom-filled wound that Edward must suck clean to save her life. The moment is intense, dramatic, and pivotal for Bella's story. But when fans went back for rewatches, they noticed something odd. The placement of Bella's bite mark isn't consistent. Some angles showcased the wound very close to the wrist in her attacks, and others suggested that it was much closer to her hand, or even slightly higher up her arm. The scar that remains for more of the later films is also not consistently in the same place, which makes it difficult to pin down exactly where James made his mark on her body. In contrast to such an important injury, where Bella was so close to becoming a vampire, this continuity slip somehow seems bigger than most. The simple reason is that prosthetics and makeups were reapplied on different shoot days, and hence, slight variations were inevitable. However, for the hawk-eyed fans, it became a running joke. It became yet another blooper in a film already overflowing with them, perhaps because it was expected to be a permanent reminder of Bella's brush with death. Number 5. Bella's laptop magic. For a movie released in 2008, Twilight captured the era's technology in all its clunky glory. Flip phones, old-school cars, and Bella's not-so-sleek laptop. It's a small prop, but it plays a big role in one of the film's most pivotal sequences. When Bella starts researching vampires online, she types awkwardly, scrolls through grainy websites, and stumbles onto myths that push her closer to discovering Edward's true identity. But here's where things get strange. Bella's laptop doesn't stay the same. In some shots, she's clearly using an old, heavy, chunky type, and others have visible signs of it being used. But in others, notably for some close-ups, the laptop is even slimmer, and so new that it hardly looks like the same model. People noticed the switch when they watched it for the second time, which is how the error was pointed out online. People like Bella, who just moved into Forks and isn't really into technology, seem rather odd switching from one laptop to another while the movie is being filmed. This is most likely because various days of filming had different laptops brought in, or a streamlined prop was specially chosen for close-ups. Yet, once you see it, it sticks out. Instead of becoming a seamless window into vampire lore, the blooper becomes just another quirk. Like so many, that Twilight inadvertently manages in the long run. Number 4. The human slip. Dialogue in Twilight is often quoted, sometimes for its intensity and sometimes for its unintentional humor. But one slip in Edward's lines left fans scratching their heads years later. At one point, Edward comments on Bella's humanity in a way that doesn't quite match the rules of Meyer's vampire lore. He refers to her heartbeat and scent inconsistently, creating confusion about what vampires can and can't sense. In one moment, it's implied Edward can hear her heart constantly, but later, his words suggest he only notices it in heightened moments. This minor inconsistency could be dismissed as some romantic hyperbole, but fans caught it during subsequent viewings. If the saga stresses vampires' supernatural senses, from smelling blood to hearing footsteps from miles away, thoughtless dialogue is dialogue that sticks out. It almost felt like two different versions of Edward's powers were at war within the same film. The slip does not slay the scene, but it definitely gives Twilight's internal consistency a knock. For a franchise under the microscope from the fan base, one line can be a catalyst. A supposed heartfelt moment between Edward and Bella instead became another moment when the lore butted heads with continuity. Number 3. The meadow dialogue slip. The meadow scene is arguably Twilight's most iconic moment. Edward revealing his sparkling skin and Bella finally acknowledging what he is. But if you look closely, the dialogue exchange has an editing slip that fans didn't notice right away. When Edward delivers the now famous line, "Say it," out loud, the audio and his lip movements don't quite sync in every shot. In close-ups, you can see a slight mismatch between Robert Pattinson's mouth and the overdubbed line, suggesting it was re-recorded in post-production. A DR, automated dialogue replacement, is used during post-production or a studio recording while shooting on location, especially for outdoor shooting when wind and background sounds make shooting clean sound impossible. But the syncing issue looks as if the exchange is just a little off, almost like a dubbed foreign film. Kristen Stewart's responses in the same shot actually have a few moments wherein the timing feels slightly off, as if the different takes were stitched together without perfect continuity. The moment when Bella says, "vampire," held audiences spellbound at the time. This little blooper slipped through unnoticed, but the high-definition revisits did expose the flaw. Number 2. The camera crew in Bella's mirror. Bella's bedroom is one of the most frequently used sets in Twilight. It's where she Googles vampire myths, reads in solitude, and even shares intimate conversations with Edward. The cozy, cluttered space feels authentic to her character. But it also hides one of the movie's funniest bloopers. In certain shots, particularly when Bella is sitting near her mirror, you can briefly spot crew equipment and even a cameraman reflected in the glass. This is also a very classic act of continuity slip. It happens mostly in movies where shoots are done in tight spaces. Mirrors and other reflective surfaces are usually difficult to shoot with, and even a slight angle error can reveal the magic from behind the camera. Most audiences from 2008 were too engrossed in the romance to catch this, but with streaming, freeze frame, and high-definition replay, everything has been laid bare. The mirror mistake was fun, but our number 1 pick? It's bigger than them all. Number 1. Shattered Glass Mystery. The final showdown at the ballet studio is one of Twilight's most intense sequences, packed with shattered glass, blood, and Edward's desperate attempt to save Bella from James. But tucked into this climactic fight is a blooper so big, it's amazing it went unnoticed for years. When James hurls Bella against a mirror, the glass explodes dramatically, leaving shards all over the floor. Moments later, in a wide shot, the floor is mysteriously clear, as if the broken pieces were swept away mid-fight. Seconds after that, the shards return again, scattered around Bella as she writhes in pain. It is the case that, although not often, there are continuity errors with props such as this, widely known to it, would take place at the emotional peak of the movie. The disappearing and reappearing glass then makes it all the more unreal sounding, and it looks like 2 different versions of the scene cut together accidentally without smoothing in the cuts. And this is something that the audiences have been blinded to for years in the tense atmosphere. A high-definition release, and most importantly, a fan rewatch later, brought it all up to the surface. Thanks for watching. If you had fun spotting these hidden Twilight bloopers, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment with your favorite mistake, and subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive. And hey, don't stop here. Check out the video on your screen right now for another wild breakdown you won't believe.